Hi.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another installment of TEDXcellence, the show where we are always accountable, especially for our mistakes in doing the introduction. Hope everybody's doing well on this beautiful Thursday evening. I'm here with you with a Pepperjack, Dog Cat Fox, and all of you. So welcome to Thursday. It's been kind of a busy day for me. So busy that I forgot to put up a bingo card poll earlier today, and so I've made an executive decision. Today's bingo card is A for accountability. So you can find the bingo card links in the description. So get your bingo cards ready. And in the meantime, before I get into tonight's topic, who's joining me on this beautiful Thursday evening? Another A, Advocatus Diaboli. Good evening. Mike R, good evening. Blue-Eyed Scream, hello. Oh, Blue-Eyed Scream got away from me there for a second. There we go. Blue-Eyed Scream, good evening. Adabisi, another A. A for effort. No. Adabisi, good evening. Nice to see you. Been a while. Hope you're well. Plague Trucker Zach, hello. Who else is here? Scrolling. Oh, Kieverdam is here, and thank you, Kieverdam, as always, for providing the link, guys, at the top of the chat box to the Leukemia Lymphoma Society donation page. Please, if you have the ability, take a look at that and donate if you can, but if you can't, if you can share that out on social media, that would be appreciated. So thank you ahead of time for that. And thank you, Kieverdam, for providing the link. Malachi D. Wildman, good evening. The ending question of the talk will be, does she have good accountability? Time will tell. Time will tell. Resolute Germ, good evening. Jay Blizza, hello. Miranda Stone is here. Guys, I don't know if you know about Miranda Stone, but on the off chance that you don't. Kiro Soldier, good evening. Attack Alpaca, hello. Who else is here? Scrolling. Theater Winch Ginger, good evening. Funtime Bats, hello. And Daryl Odell, good evening. John Trioxin, hello. Derek LaRue, thank you, Derek. As always, for your continued support and generosity. Very much appreciated. Thank you, Derek. Hope you're having a good evening. Hope you enjoy the show. Daniel Folman, B-I-N-G-O. And the Vexorcist, good evening. And to anybody I missed, anybody lurking, anybody in the future, good evening. All right, so tonight's topic. This one comes to us, threefold, technically, both for why I chose it and why it ended up being the selection for tonight's talk. First and foremost, those of you that voted on the Discord server are the reason that it is tonight's talk. I put up two options on the Discord server, and you guys chose this over breath work and healing. I chose breathwork and healing as a possibility because it had one of those TEDx disclaimers on it that said, this talk represents only the views of the speaker as far as health and mental illness or whatever. Always a red flag for potential snake oil there. So that was one thing. And for this one, first it was the title. The title had my curiosity. But then something else got my attention. The title is Solving the Accountability Crisis. And I thought to myself, okay, do we have an accountability crisis? And I then thought to myself, yes, we do, in many different ways. Shall I tell you why I think we are in an accountability crisis? I would, and I thought about doing so, but I'd rather hear what our speaker has to say first, and if I have any agreements, objections, or examples of my own, we'll deal with them as we go. So I'll hold off on that. But the other reason I chose this talk as a possibility was because of something in the description. Now, generally speaking, unless there's something completely ambiguous or confusing about the title, I almost never read the descriptions of these TEDx talks before I select them or put them on the air and so on. But in this case, it was unavoidable because there was a key phrase in that first sentence or so of the description, before it cuts off and you have to click on the more thing to have the rest come down. And my eyes just could not catch it as I pulled up the page. And that phrase was restorative justice. One of my favorites. And so what does restorative justice have to do with solving the accountability crisis? Well, I don't know. I'm looking forward to finding out. And hopefully you are too. Including Green Badger Outdoors. Good evening. And did I miss anybody else? I don't think so. So, yeah. So anyway, get your bingo card A's ready. I also have some exciting programming news that if you're not following me on Twitter, or sorry, X, and you should be following me on X, you might not already know. Or if you're on the Discord server, you probably already know. But if you don't, I will tell you at the end of the show. So with that, let's get into it. This one clocks in at just over 15 and a half minutes. I'm going to turn the music down just a smidge. The audio was solid from the jump, so we should be okay. Oh, by the way, just because in the course of prepping all of this, I found something else out. Our speaker is a veteran TEDx presenter. This is not her first rodeo. She's given at least one other TEDx talk, and I think it was 5 or 6 years ago or something. So as far as practice in giving, public speeches and things, she's got it. How good it'll be, don't know. But we'll find out together. So get yourselves ready, get your bingo cards ready. Bingo card A. Let's begin.
I tend to be a fatalist. So
you tend to be a fatalist. Okay. I suppose I do too. Whatever happens, happens. So you guys hear that okay? Let me know in the chat real quick. Let's see, did I see somebody else here? I did. I saw the Dead Man. Good evening. And Adabisi, nice start. Yeah, well. She's a fatalist, everybody.
Well, I'll start with the bad news.
Okay.
We are experiencing a crisis of accountability.
I completely agree. I first noticed it roundabouts, or I first started thinking about it in these terms, roundabouts 2008. We'll get to why if she doesn't come up with similar examples herself.
As in someone or a lot of people do something wrong and seem to get away with it.
Yes, I completely agree. And I'm sure most people in the chat can think of a few instances in current events in modern times within the last, year or 5 years. Pope Tyrannus III, the Blessed Lich. Good evening. So I agree. C. Thomas. Hello. I agree with the speaker. Too many women are not given accountability. Well, who knows? Who knows what she'll say?
Or maybe they're caught, but the punishment, if there is one, does not fit the crime.
Okay. In spirit, she and I are on the same page, but what is she talking about specifically?
I was going to launch into examples of people who embezzled money and bullied employees, even pastors and political leaders who abuse power and brag about getting away with it.
Okay, before I get to that, Phil Thomas, good evening, and Read by Nature. Hello. Crisis of accountability from a feminist? Is she? I don't know. I guess we'll find out. And the Alexander, good evening. Okay, so on the screen, for those of you listening at home, she has 3 headlines up. The Rise and Fall of Mars Hill, the abuses of a superstar pastor and megachurch ruins left behind. Okay. Next one. She stole millions from taxpayers to buy show horses. Biden set her free. Oh, yeah, that's Crundwell. What was her first name? It was something basic like Lori or something, or Lauren. Anyway, yeah, I saw this documentary a long time ago about her. Lisa Crundwell. Anyway, yeah, she was some comptroller for Dixon. Was it like Dixon, Texas? I think it was like the birthplace of Ronald Reagan or something. And she was in charge of all the finances for this town. And she embezzled 15 or 18 million dollars or something over 20 years or some crazy thing, and she just became this professional show horse star and bought a ranch, and somehow nobody in town kind of questioned where did she get all the money. They just assumed that she got it in selling and dealing in horses, but it was the other way around. She got the horses by embezzling the money from the town and all this other stuff. I think it was Lisa Crundwell. Anyway, I remember that. And lastly, Supreme Court justices embroiled in ethics scandals from private jets and real estate to lavish gifts and secret recordings. Right. Those are the 3 examples you can come up with. Not Fauci, not Hunter Biden. I mean, admittedly, she did talk about Biden set her free. Yeah, the Crundwell part, but or what's his name, Trevor Milton, or let's just talk about in general. No, wait, I'm stopping myself. I said I would not start listing off my examples until she gave hers. Okay, these are her first ones. She's talking about a church pastor, an embezzler, and the Supreme Court justices. Okay, those are her examples of people getting along with no accountability. Adebisi, end the speech. We agree with her. Well, yeah, it's just like roll credits. We're done. There's nothing else to say. Yeah, that would be the safe option. That would be the safe option. However,
but there are so many stories that I realized I don't need to tell you. We've all heard them.
You're right. Okay, if you can just keep on this track for 15 minutes, I might be the happiest TEDx viewer I've ever been.
And we want to see wrongdoers face consequences for their actions.
We do, yes.
Because it's not fair. It's not right. When people can break the social contract, or even the law, and it doesn't seem to matter.
Yeah, like Nancy Pelosi, or Dick Cheney. One who passed away earlier this week, and the other one who's retiring in like a year or 2 years or something, after gaming the stock market. Anyway, I could go on. Ranting Monkey will have more to say about that, I'm sure, tonight on his show.
What then?
What then?
Without a functional system of accountability, how can we have trust in our institutions and communities?
Well, I see, we have a functional system of accountability. It just matters whether or not the people in charge of adjudicating it actually enact the consequences written down. That's the problem. Right? The system only works if it is leveraged fairly and correctly and without corruption or graft. But
this is what I call the crisis of accountability.
Again, in spirit, I agree with you. But I have to wonder and I have to ask, okay, how is restorative justice, which classically does not involve incarceration or any particularly life-debilitating consequences, how is that going to solve the crisis of accountability?
Hi, my name is Anne.
Hi, Anne. I'm Scribe.
And I'm an Enneagram 1.
You're a what?
That means I was born with a sense of moral indignation.
Oh. Okay.
But why am I here talking about this crisis to you?
Because you really need some affirmation, or you think you're awesome? Or both?
My career focuses on building consensus across differences,
I think that was the title of your last TEDx talk.
on resolving conflict and repairing harm.
Repairing harm. Classic restorative justice.
Part of that repair centers on accountability. To maintain trust in each other, we must be willing to make amends when we each inevitably do wrong.
Okay. So, from your own examples, how does the, rogue pastor make amends? How was it Lisa Crundwell? I think it was Lisa Crundwell make amends. How do the Supreme Court justices make amends? I mean, it sounds all relatively monetary in consequence of their actions, let's say. But what if it's not a monetary damage that's done? Or what if there's like a public trust issue that's taken place in addition to any kind of monetary issue?
But wait, I hear you thinking, isn't that the role of the criminal justice system?
Mind reading assumes motives. Okay, so we'll circle that on the board. Remember, guys, this is bingo card A. Where did I put mind reading on this one? There it is. I have to look around and pass my microphone. I really should get, like, now that I'm doing stuff on camera, I should really get one of those, like, hang down microphones on the arm off to the side here so I can see my screen. I don't know if that would work, and I don't know if I want to go through that rigmarole. Anyway, here's what we have to remember in the course of listening to this talk. Collectivize his own demographic. Not yet. I mean, she described herself in Miss Moral Indignation way. I don't know if that's I guess that could be a demographic. We can discuss it. Systemic or institutional? We'll probably get there. Sales pitch for product or service? Not yet, but you never know. There could be a book involved or a group or something. Childhood or family anecdote? DEI philosophy? Plays victim? Maybe. Microaggressions or unconscious bias, and as always, remember, that is when the speaker uses those elements as part of their discussion or presentation, not that we think they possess them. Privilege, contradicts own point or fails to make argument. Patriarchy, deceptive statistics, economic disparity, feminism, marginalized or marginalization, a list, and that has to be a formal list of some kind, white supremacy, word salad, self-vilification or wretchedness, weightless example or non sequitur, attempt to coin new buzzword or buzz phrase, benevolent condescension, anecdote that probably never happened, and lastly leaves out vital context. So far on the board we have free space and mind reading assumes motives circled. Others may be oncoming. Oh, let's continue.
Our criminal justice system is broken and unjust.
How so?
Even when it works, this system hands out punishment, and punishment does not demand accountability.
Punishment is accountability. I mean, you can't force someone to be remorseful if that's what you mean, but what else are you talking about?
What do I mean?
Yeah.
You can be punished without actually making amends.
Okay. Sure. But what is an amends? It depends on the nature of the crime. If it's a financial crime, conceivably, maybe amends can be made, but then depending on the amount of damage you do, it could be amends that will never be paid back by a mortal person. And again, you can't force someone to be remorseful. The most you can do is try to garnish their wages or separate them from society for a period of time. On the temporal plane, that's about as much as you can do. We'd all love it if we could make criminals feel remorse or do something outside of simply "I'm sorry" as a redress of their offenses. But the Alexander, thank you so much. Hi. How's it going? And I also see your hellos and everything when you comment on the videos, just saying hello. And I try to say hello back as often as I'm able. So hello, Alex. And, Datura Jones is here. You can't make someone feel sorry who is a sociopath. I'm not sorry. Okay. Wait, does that mean you're... Was there a hidden message in that message? Are we concerned now?
You might commit a crime, be found guilty, be sent to prison.
Yes.
Without ever admitting you made a mistake. Or
you cannot compel someone. I mean, here's the thing. Even if somebody says, "I admit I made a mistake," are they being truthful? Are they actually being sincere? If you have someone who's a practiced liar, can you tell? But sure, you could have somebody, go through a trial, go through even a plea deal process, and never make any statement of remorse. Okay. If this is the hill upon which she hopes to climb with her argument, I cannot wait to hear how restorative justice is going to elicit from criminals sincere and vocal remorse.
or apologizing to your victims.
Uh-huh.
Accountability is different. It is a value we must hold, a value that's not necessarily baked into the American criminal justice system.
Okay. The only accountability that I can reasonably hope for when it comes to things like this is consequences for actions. I cannot hope for remorse. I cannot hope for a showing of confession or guilt, right? I mean, it would be nice, I suppose, but that's not what I want. Somebody just saying, I'm sorry, should not then allow them a get out of jail free card, literally. So again, I'm wondering what it is she's going to propose.
Simply, accountability is an obligation or willingness to accept responsibility for one's actions.
Yes, there's that obligation part where you are going to prison for a period of time, or you will pay a fine of XYZ or whatever, where you're held to account. See, it's obligation or willingness.
You'll note the Merriam-Webster example. Public officials lack accountability.
Uh-huh.
Even the dictionary acknowledges we have a crisis.
Okay. Sure.
But wait, I hear y'all thinking again.
Uh-oh. Professor X is in the house.
What about getting canceled?
That you have to assess on a case-by-case basis, too.
Isn't that being held accountable?
After a fashion?
Right. Welcome to cancel culture. On the surface, canceling somebody, as in publicly calling out their missteps, might seem to demand accountability, as the person may be forced to offer some apology and suffer loss of a job or fans or wealth.
Okay. I would like to know, and I don't know that I've actually thought of it in these terms before. Mechanically speaking, how is being canceled effectively any different from the classic description of restorative justice as a process? Someone is brought before their accuser. Well, in restorative justice, we've already assumed we've gone through due process of some kind, and we know that the person being accused is guilty. And then they are forced to listen to the grievances of those that they've offended or harmed in some way, and then a plan of punishment or redress to heal the harm is come up with by a moderator and the stakeholders and so on. So if you do something that gets you canceled, and then the mob decides you deserve XYZ consequences for your actions, like contacting your employer or some other crazy stuff, which I still think is pretty scummy either way. So if you're gonna decry cancel culture, and again, I'm assuming we're gonna get to restorative justice at some point because it was mentioned in the description. If you're gonna decry cancel culture, I'm wondering how you're going to justify restorative justice.
Canceling is public shaming.
So is restorative justice.
But shame does not motivate people to make authentic amends.
Yes, it does. It can. It's not 100% guarantee, but it can. I mean, have you ever known anyone that's been shamed into realizing their mistake? Sincerely? Yeah. Doesn't happen every time, but it can.
Cancel culture is not actually justice.
Tell that to the people who engage in cancel culture.
Just more punishment.
It's social justice.
Which is ultimately damaging for all of us.
It all depends on what we're talking about.
So, why is our culture focused on punishment rather than accountability?
These two things can be the same. Okay? They can effectively be the same thing. But you need to give me an example.
For millennia, humans organized in groups with belief structures that held members accountable.
Yeah. It's restorative justice, all right. We're going to go back to Native American or indigenous peoples' justice practices. All right? Because going back to the old ways are the best ways. You know, prior to that whole Constitution thing.
You were expected to listen to elders or community leaders and make amends when your actions harm the group.
Didn't you just tell us that public officials aren't held accountable? So who are the elders today?
As religion evolved, we became accountable not just to the gods and the humans who represent them, but to God, capital G, a supreme being doling out justice.
Well, the justice was doled out by mortal hands, despite the rules saying otherwise, but okay.
At its best, religion can also model forgiveness and grace and liberation from suffering.
I guess? Again, it all depends on what we're talking about. Religion can also dictate that you execute somebody for apostasy, or cull the rival tribe of its children and women or something. Okay, Anna Lynn, good evening. The Native American punishment for crimes against children is correct. Yeah, but they always go back to Native American restorative practices as their justification for why it's better, because everything that is more natural and untamed and not touched by, white European philosophy or pen is always better.
Whether Judaism, Islam, Hinduism, indigenous ceremonies, all of these practices provide a moral framework to hold people to account.
Sure. Moral framework. Your mileage may vary depending on what book you're reading or which chapter, but okay. So far we've had the criminal justice system is broken, doesn't work, cancel culture is bad, religions have a moral framework embedded in them. Sure.
As our culture has become more secular,
I assume you're talking about American culture in general, or
more individual and isolated, we're losing adherence to these wisdom traditions.
Okay. There's a lot of conflict. Okay, when you mention that list of religions, there's a lot of conflict, one to the other, as to what is a moral act and an immoral act. Okay.
The religions and philosophies that provide shared moral codes.
Shared moral. Okay. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you is about maybe the only unifying sentiment, if not literal statement, you might be able to extract from most of the major religions. But even then, there's plenty within the different books to contradict themselves. So, where are you going with this?
Now, there are definitely problems with religious institutions. But that's another talk.
Okay.
One side effect of people leaving church and temple and the mosque is that it feels like we're on our own.
We're all on our own. So is this an argument that you can't have a moral center without religion?
Not accountable to God or anyone.
Yeah, I hope people don't try that in practice, because then the law might catch up with you.
This sums up the crisis.
Wait. People departing regular attendance at religious place of choice equals the accountability crisis? The lack of religion? What?
How do we fix this?
I don't know. Make everybody convert to something? Like the necromongers? Convert now or fall forever?
First, although I did receive excellent training as a religious studies major at Austin College, and I am a person of faith,
Yes.
I'm not suggesting religion is solely the answer.
Well, you just implied that an absence of religion is solely the problem.
Nor am I blaming this crisis on secularism.
You could have fooled me just then.
Instead, we need to radically re-examine our culture.
Again, in sentiment, yes.
Which may include a recreation of our wisdom traditions.
Okay, I'm getting close to circling word salad unless you really firm things up.
The communal practices that allow humans to coexist in relationship, being held accountable while working toward a common good.
Okay. An example would be welcome now.
There is one widespread program that calls for making amends.
Ah! Would that be restorative justice?
The 12 Steps of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Oh! Okay. But it wasn't the 12-step program based firmly in religion originally. I know that it's kind of, or at least I think, I've never gone through it myself, it's become more secularized over the years. But it is religiously based, yes?
These days, making amends can be a radical act. But, of course, we are not all in recovery.
No, and you were talking about crimes earlier, not addictions. It's explicitly. So, do you have a 12-step program for murderers and rapists or something?
Fortunately, there is a process that demands accountability for everyone.
Restorative justice?
A process called restorative justice.
Yay! Okay. So, how would restorative justice solve for the 3 specific examples you gave at the top of your talk? You see, I've got the persuasive essay structure in front of my eyes right now, like Iron Man's internal suit. Okay, so you mentioned, or you brought up 3 specific examples of public corruption. And now, after a long scenic route, we have arrived at, I'm guessing, your offering of solution. All right, we've been a third of the way through the talk so far. The reasonable thing to do, in my mind, would be to revisit at least one, if not all 3, of your examples and say, how would restorative justice have brought this situation to a point of healing and accountability? Is that what we're going to get? Or some other example? If you don't want to deal with your headlines, you've got something else you want to bring up.
We need a restorative culture shift to curb this crisis, reconnect to each other, and rebuild our public trust.
How?
What is restorative justice?
I'll let you explain. And then if you leave anything out that at least I'm aware of, generally I'll add.
Simply, restorative justice is a philosophy that prioritizes relationships.
You left off 2 words there. Of her own card, a philosophy that prioritizes relationships over punishment. Okay, and so if there is no punishment, how do you define accountability?
Whether we like it or not, as a society, we are all in relationship with one another.
I'm not in relationship with, who do I want to pick? Brian Koberger. I have no relationship with that guy. Or any of the millions of other people on the planet I don't directly know or interact with and never will. But, okay.
Restorative justice is rooted in indigenous peacemaking practices.
Hey! I'm gonna take a victory lap on that one. I am, because I called it. C. Thomas, thank you so very much. You mean to tell me that cancel culture doesn't bring accountability and is unproductive? Man, wish she was there to tell people who ostracized me by doing that 15 years ago. Yeah, I mean, if you get, whether deserved or not, if you get canceled in the most extreme way, it can be a life-changing event. And I've had this experience. Have you ever been held to account for something you did not do? Not even a question, not even a gray area, something you are absolutely innocent of, but you were held to account and punished as though you had done the thing? Yeah, that can be life-changing too. All right. So, yeah, cancel culture doesn't count as accountability. It's not punishment. Yeah, well, anyway, I could go on. But thank you, C. Thomas. Appreciate it. And my condolences for your obviously terrible experience. Because, yeah. Amy Williams, good evening. Let's see. Did I miss anybody else? I hope not. Okay. Yeah, if I can say hello. Hello, is it me you're looking for? 'Cause if it isn't, then you're on the wrong channel.
And draws from pacifist traditions like the Anabaptists and Quakers.
Oh, the Quakers. Yeah, okay.
Before we had governments running courts and prisons.
Before we had governments running courts and prisons. I hate to tell you this, but when you talk about tribal elders and leaders having all of the better wisdom, and you talk about restorative justice being a indigenous process, that is a government running a court. It may be a relatively simplified and tribal government, but it's a government. When you start talking about a hierarchy,
communities had to work through how to repair harm when someone hurt others.
Through a tribal hierarchy.
In the contemporary restorative justice model, if a person causes harm, they are invited in to meet with the affected community members.
A circle! Hey! What have I said before? Restorative justice, all about the circle. It's about everybody being on equal footing with everybody else. Except for, those who are on higher status than everybody else because they're the moderator or something. Okay. All right, go ahead.
Sometimes this can mean bringing people together for facilitated conversations to find consensus on how to repair the harm and provide restitution.
Okay, so I'll ask what I ask every time I watch a restorative justice talk that involves crime. What do you do with the serial killer? What do you do with the rapist? What do you do with the incessant con man?
Other times, this can mean classes on empathy, community service, writing an apology letter, or finding other ways to repair what was broken.
Give me an example. You have to give us an example. Actually, I prefer 3 examples.
When you hold someone accountable, by making them listen to how their actions impacted others, you create an opportunity for them to grow.
Sociopaths don't care. And at best, you're going to get a pantomime of understanding and empathy because they know that's what you want to hear. And nothing will change.
This is especially impactful with youth.
Okay. I have said it before that depending on the offense, and that is very important, depending on the offense, a non-incarceration option may be better when it comes to youthful offenders because their minds are still growing, there's still an opportunity to change behaviors, potentially, but it all depends on the severity of the offense. So, yes, restorative practices may, and I want to very clearly underscore, may make more sense when it comes to youthful offender cases. But that is an escape hatch that you can only take for a minute or two here, because you've been talking about big boy crimes, or at least the implication thereof, at the top of your talk. Big boy crimes, adult crimes. So you can go off on this tangent for a minute, sure. But you can't live there.
Kids' brains are not fully developed.
Ah! Jeez. Man, I tell you. Okay, give me another.
And teenagers are programmed to rebel. But if you consistently hold them accountable, they will grow into more responsible humans.
Not guaranteed. Stop. Okay. Stop making promises you can't keep. Stop writing checks you can't cash. Restorative justice is not a cure-all for all things. Unless you are the first person I have ever listened to who gives me a rock-solid explanation of how restorative justice deals with murderers and rapists and persistent con men. Unless you've got that one in your back pocket, no. But you have a little over 7 minutes to go.
This works for adults too. We all deserve the chance to correct our mistakes.
How do you correct murder? I'll just stay at one of the top crimes. How do you correct murder?
As commonly practiced, restorative justice can be either a complement or an alternative to our criminal justice system.
True. And most of the time it's an alternative. It's like if you go through this program rather than go to jail, right? Drug court is an example. Or, what was that thing they had in Oregon? It had a really funky name. I'm not even sure it was a diversionary program. What was it called? It was something where the acronym spelled out a ridiculous word like hoopla or something. But I think that was a police alternative. I think that was sending out like social or mental health workers instead of police. It's going to drive me nuts. Somebody in the chat will probably get it before I do.
My organization, Consensus Council.
Oh, sales pitch for product or service. Circling that one. Consensus Council. Okay, what does your organization do?
Runs a restorative justice program as a diversion or alternative for juvenile court across North Dakota.
Okay, again, like I say, depending on the level of the offense, juvenile offenders, that level of crime and court would make the most sense for diversionary or alternative to incarceration restorative practices. Okay, you sold me. That's fine. But again, you can't live in that argument because you brought up adult crimes. You brought up, let's just go with Lisa Crundwell. And I think it was Lisa. If it's not Lisa, it's something like that. Anyway, you brought up the comptroller of Dixon, Texas, I think it was, or whatever. Anyway, she embezzled tens of millions of dollars over several years and spent it all on herself and deprived the people of her town of necessary services as a result because she was siphoning out from the budget for what the town needed. Okay, so she caused untold amount of suffering that the people there probably didn't even know they were engaged in because of the lack of funds that were going to city services and the fire department and the police department and everything else. Okay. What does restorative justice do with her?
We're due north of here, next to Canada.
Oh,
We also provide services for victims of all ages, and we provide training for staff and residents at our state penitentiary.
And in the absence of other information, all credit to you for that. That does not get you out of having to explain yourself.
There is so much potential to expand restorative services to every community.
I'm sure there is. How does restorative justice address adult-level crimes?
I'll share a quick story.
Please do, and we will assess its believability.
A woman, I'll call her Connie,
Okay.
went on retreat at a Catholic convent and
Oh, you're bringing religion into this? Oh boy, here we go. Sorry, cut her off a little bit.
went on retreat at a Catholic convent in small town North Dakota, population 921.
That is a small town.
Connie parked her car and hung out with the nuns for a week,
Convent Connie. Okay.
something I also like to do.
You like hanging with nuns? Hey?
But when she got ready to leave, she discovered her car covered in dents and the windshield smashed.
Okay.
In this prairie town, it didn't take long to figure out that a group of middle school boys had thrown rocks at her vehicle, causing $3,000 in damage.
Oh my gosh. In a tiny, tiny little community, they knew who the usual suspects were. I mean, I've heard this in several different restorative justice talks. It's like, you have this tribal community that is probably so cloistered one to another and so well informed of each other's business, like a small town, that someone committing a crime probably does affect a wide swath of the population. But then you get into the real world, the modern world, in most urban centers, where someone smashing up somebody else's car 6 blocks down the road doesn't mean a thing and is completely unknown to the vast majority of the population. And so what do you do to hold someone to account in a situation where the harm is diffused to a point of practically non-existence for most people? That's why you have the law writ large, and why the people that represent the law say the people versus whoever. Because even if what has happened doesn't affect me directly, it does affect society writ large, right? Because not every situation involves what is effectively, in this case, a tribe. 912 people. That's the entire town. Right.
Now, typically, these youth would be cited by police, sent before a judge, and be forced to pay a fine.
Restitution. Yes. Pay for the damage caused.
Then they would have a criminal record
Yeah.
and wouldn't have met Connie at all.
Well, depending on their age, the likelihood that it would eventually be expunged if they fulfilled all the requirements of their punishment is pretty high. Now, I don't know what the rules are in North Dakota, but in most states, when it comes to juvenile offenses of particular levels and below and so on, you can petition to have the record expunged after a certain period of time. So it may not affect them in perpetuity.
Instead, these boys were referred to the restorative justice program.
Okay.
After preparation by a facilitator, the boys and their parents met with Connie for a conversation.
Did the conversation involve the writing of a check for the damages?
Connie told them how she wasn't able to get home that day and how expensive it was to get her car repaired when money was already tight.
I can believe it. Did they pay restitution?
The boys apologized
Great.
and arranged to work off their debt to cover the cost.
Work off their debt to cover the cost. How?
These youth could have ended up in the system.
No. What do you mean work off their debt to cover the cost? What were they doing that was an equitable in-kind exchange for the expense that hit the victim?
But instead, they learned that damaging property also hurts people.
They may have. I don't know.
Connie may have started out upset, but she understood kids make mistakes.
Throwing rock after rock at a car is not a mistake, but sure, okay. Now here's the thing. I can believe this anecdote, but the story does not satisfy me.
And she was provided an opportunity to forgive.
She was provided an opportunity to forgive. Oh, how gracious of restorative justice. I want to give you an opportunity to forgive these kids. What if I choose not to take it? What if I don't believe in their apology? What if I don't believe their sincerity? What if I don't believe that they are remorseful until I see a showing of it in some way, shape, or form? I'll decide when I'm ready to forgive, thank you very much.
Restorative justice is a humanizing experience for everyone.
Not necessarily. You cannot make these guarantees.
Accountability is not just some bonus outcome.
Okay, in my opinion, what you've described, and definitely leaving out vital context, which I'm going to circle here pretty quick because she's obviously not going to tell us, what you've described would not feel like accountability to me. They're going to work off their debt to her, but her car was still damaged and she still had to pay out of pocket for it. And yeah, so I'm circling leaves out vital context because if that is going to be your premier and first and thus far only real example of what you're talking about, you need to give far more details as to how this settles up, either financially or karmically or otherwise. Annalyn, again, why would the kids care? I don't know. When I say you, I mean her and the Connie lady. You're assuming what the kids are saying is sincere, that their apologies or their contrition is genuine. You have to assume so. You have to extend the benefit of the doubt, which obviously, sometimes that's just what you have to do. But I don't see how that story would somehow feel like a just outcome. All right. I mean, if all three kids came from impoverished families and they didn't really have any way to pay it off, well then, I'd find a way for them to make restitution, summer jobs or something else. I don't know. Richard, since these are women, would they forgive their rapists if they are raped? Well, again, she has not addressed, and I have yet to see any restorative justice advocate do so. She's not addressed the most serious crimes. She has an organization that works specifically with juvenile offenders. Fine, great. I've got no general argument, as I've said, with restorative justice practices when it comes to youthful offenders. That's one place where it might have some effectiveness. I've got no particular complaint against diversionary programs in, say, drug crime, where if you show that you've gotten off the drugs and you stay clean and you go through a certain number of steps and check-ins and tests and so on, and you show that you're making an effort, sure, that can be a fair exchange as compared to going to prison. I can accept that too. But we're not talking about youthful offender crimes. We're not talking about victimless crimes necessarily, like, drug possession and things like that. She brought up at the top of her talk 3 headlines that either directly or at least implicitly implied adult level crimes, embezzlement, abuse, corruption of public officials. She has to circle back around to how this is going to affect that, how restorative justice will resolve those levels of crimes. And certainly, if she's going to criticize the entire criminal justice system, as she has, ideally she would also address the most serious crimes in society and how restorative justice would apply. Because she talks about it like it's a panacea, and yet she also talks about it like it's just a diversionary and alternative. Either it's one or the other. Either it can solve all the problems or it can't. Tater, what she's described only works in high-trust, homogenous community, which is mostly extant in the U.S. Right. Yeah. We're not living in a cloistered, everybody depends on one another, tribal situation anymore. Okay. And even in this small town that she talks about, 912 residents, I would wager it probably doesn't work like your classic tribe at all to begin with. And maybe those things would work better in a smaller town because there is more of a social accountability and social awareness of people's comings and goings. But in general terms, big cities and elsewise, not that I've seen or had shown to me, let's say.
It is necessary for us to exist in relationship.
Okay.
This is all well and good if you run a nonprofit with facilitators in North Dakota. But I promise to offer solutions for our larger accountability crisis.
Okay. All right. I'm willing to walk back my criticisms a bit. You've got 6 minutes, or a little less than 6 minutes. All right, fair enough. All right, so yes. Okay, so you've realized that your scope has been awfully small so far. All right, so tell us, how does restorative justice deal with. I mean, I want her to address the worst crimes, but so far she's only really cited graft, corruption, embezzlement, and so on. So, okay, I'll give you that. If that's as far as you want to go, it's not ideal. But if you at least address the kinds of crimes you yourself cited at the top of the show, that'll be better than nothing.
How do we do this?
I don't know.
First, we need to collectively reclaim our values.
Okay, before she gets too far, that is a list, a formal list in the talk, so circling a list. Just a reminder, this is bingo card A. Links are in the description. So far, we have circled on the board: sales pitch for product or service, free space, a list, mind reading assumes motives, and leaves out vital context. There are plenty of other squares that might already be qualified for circling, but don't worry, we'll get to all of them shortly.
Values are named at the start of every restorative conversation.
Okay. But restorative conversations happen after the crime. Okay.
We must prioritize accountability, integrity, and treating everyone with dignity.
In a general sense, okay.
When we publicly state accountability as our value, then we can be held to account, and no one will be surprised when we hold others accountable.
An example. You gave us an example on the juvenile offender side. You have to give us an example on the adult level crime side.
Second, look to the young.
No, you just told us. You just told us. The young, their brains have not fully developed. They're still capable of making serious mistakes and just being rebellious teenagers. Why would I look to the young?
Start with restorative programming in schools, which
we have an accountability crisis now. You brought up adult level crime and corruption. You keep retreating to stuff that does not matter. We've been there. We've done that. Move on.
benefits adults. Teachers
Eventually, maybe. But here's the thing. Let's say you take a sociopathic little kid and you put them through restorative practices and they play act doing everything that you want them to do and saying everything that they want you to say. Okay, and then they grow up into an adult sociopath. Then what?
staff and parents as much as the kids. Find out if restorative justice is an option in your state's juvenile system.
No, I'm not. No. You're supposed to tell us how restorative justice is going to address the broader issues of society. Not finding work for an organization like your own. not finding a new contract for your nonprofit or whatever it is.
There is often political will to give kids second chances. We must raise our youth, starting now, in a restorative culture.
Okay, let's say we draw a line right now. Right now. And everything's great. What about the people that already exist? What about the stories you brought up at the top of your own talk?
Third, look to the wise.
How do I determine who is the wise?
Seek out the elders and mentors in your life who
The elders and mentors in my life.
adhere to something greater than themselves. Consult them when conflict arises.
You're just not even going to, are you? You're giving life coaching advice now. You're not going to talk about the broader societal issue. You're just, we're going to make a grassroots effort here, guys.
Ask people you respect about what guides them and why. Consider, if you feel a nudge, spiritual direction from a trusted source.
A spiritual direction from a trusted source. What do I need to have a spiritual component in order to know right from wrong?
Next, We can advocate for restorative services.
Please go out there and be evangelists for not just my organization, although, if you're local to where this talk is taking place, I wouldn't, mind. But really, broaden our industry.
If your schools or courts don't have restorative options, educate your leaders and request them.
You haven't convinced me why I should. You have not convinced me why I should. Beyond what I have already said and already had some, tentative agreement with. What restorative practices address the harm of murder? What restorative practices make sense when it comes to the crime of rape? Does everybody sit in a circle with like the rapist on one side and the victim on the other that you somehow determined is the rapist and everything? And everybody on the sides is just, what, the neighborhood that it happened in? Okay, I guess here's a question it's not the first time I've asked it. Would our speaker require that a rape victim face their rapist in order to effect a restorative practice? Because she's already said that she's willing to grant you the opportunity to forgive, which I'm also going to circle, as I just thought about it, as benevolent condescension. Don't know why I didn't before, but now I am, so benevolent condescension is being circled on the board.
Did you know that in parts of Canada, the government provides mediators to help resolve family and community disputes as a public service?
Oh my God. Did you know that in Canada, the health service pushes people towards ending their own lives rather than seeking care? I guess Canada is just doing it perfect, aren't they?
What if we adopt this practice across the US? Yeah,
what if we send untrained and unarmed individuals into domestic violence situations? What if Dr. Doom became Sorcerer Supreme? And I guess they've actually done that now. The joke doesn't land anymore when they actually went and did it. Although the what if issue where it happens, I bet you dollars to donuts is far cooler than whatever they came up with in current Marvel. I digress.
Then anyone could seek a restorative process before involving the police or calling a lawyer.
Yeah. And the people seeking this alternative, I'm sure they wouldn't necessarily be pressured within the household by anybody who's trying to avoid prison, or than somebody who might not already have some kind of control over that person when it comes to reporting a crime. Someone who might be psychologically inclined to not want to cause more trouble. I'm sure it's a perfect solution to most domestic dispute situations.
Finally, we can behave as if we are all in recovery.
Do tell.
Apologize for your mistakes.
I do.
Own the consequences of your actions.
I do. I even had to own the consequences of not my actions before, because I had no choice.
Avoid the impulse to shame others, especially online.
Yeah, hold on. Whoa. That's a bridge too far. No. The point of being online is entirely to troll others. And if deserving of it, a little bit of shame here and there never hurt. No. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Come on. Why else would I go on to X half the time? Do you know how many funny posters I've made of bad movies? There's a little bit of shame there. Come on. Don't be a complete killjoy.
Find an accountability partner.
An accountability partner? Ooh. I'm gonna hold you so accountable. Just wait till I get you home.
Together, you can influence the groups you are a part of to apply restorative practices.
I suppose I could. You haven't given me a reason to, though. Holy cats. Bread-eyed Stoka. Thank you so much. Captain Kirk says you need to wear a red shirt. Am I going to be attacked by an alien now or something? Why? You always hurt the ones you love.
Wowie wow wow.
I know. Okay. Thank you so much, Stoka. It's very, 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 very generous of you. I very much appreciate it. Hope you're enjoying the show. And I hadn't even thought in those terms. But thanks. I needed a little palate cleanser before I get back into the restorative justice area. Jay Blizza, thank you so much. Has she even addressed what if they don't want restorative justice? Seems kind of mean, which goes against being the notion that they are being kind. This is one of the fundamental flaws with the restorative justice structure, as I've had it told to me, is what if the justice, the redress offered by restorative justice is not enough for the victim? What if the victim is not satisfied with the prospect of a restorative justice outcome? What do you do then? What if the victim does not want to participate in the restorative justice process? What do you do then? Like I say, what if the offense is something as, harmful / intimate as a rape, or even just a physical assault of a non-sexual kind? I mean, that could be enough to want somebody to shy away from being in the same room with the person that physically abused them, or an abusive parent, or whatever it is. Restorative justice presupposes that you know who the offender is without a doubt, that you've somehow already gone through some due process to determine beyond a reasonable doubt that the person you have in the circle actually did the thing they're accused of doing. And B, it also necessitates the participation of the victim, or, depending on what we're talking about, the victim's family. And what if they don't want it? That is a central question. And that's why when she said, you're offered the opportunity to forgive. Oh, how kind of you. What if I don't want to accept what you're offering? What do you do then? If I'm not satisfied with the outcome for the crime perpetrated on me, what does restorative justice do then? What does it have to say? Don't know.
There are experts all over the world who can help.
Oh.
And if you can't find one, call me.
Hello? I need help. Someone murdered my loved one. How can restorative justice help me? I can't even fake an answer because I don't know what the answer is.
Easy, right? No, this is not easy.
I know it's not easy because you have not even bothered to address a adult level crime, a crime that would appear in adult court, someone being tried as an adult.
But it's necessary.
You have not shown us that.
And what's more, it is possible.
You would have to offer me a corroborated long-term study of restorative practices bringing down the crime rate in something other than a tiny, cloistered little village.
That's the secret here. This work has changed me from a fatalist into a pragmatic optimist.
Well, goody for you.
Because this solution is practical.
You have not shown that. Give me a practical crime. Give me a strong arm robbery. I'll just take a strong arm robbery. How does restorative justice apply to a robbery involving physical violence? I won't even ask for the worst crime. right? And that crime could be bad enough for some people. Some people have had their complete lives ruined by a strong arm robbery. They never trust anybody again. They're scared to go outside. All depends on the individual. But okay, if you're not willing to address murder, you're not willing to address rape, obviously. Okay, you've gone from, let's say, petty vandalism with some kids stoning a girl's car. Let's take it up a notch to an adult crime. Strong arm robbery. What does restorative justice have to say for a crime of that nature?
Proven. I'll close with a final story.
I really hope that this story addresses my, well, I guess demands or desires, depending on how you look at it.
About 15 years ago,
2020. No, not 2020. Boy, I was told there'd be no math. Okay, 2010.
there was a 21-year-old I'll call Tony who
21. Okay, so legal adult, Tony.
lived in a North Dakota college town.
Okay.
Tony liked science fiction and taking photos with old cameras.
I can empathize with the one, but no experience with the other.
He also liked giving back.
Okay.
One day, Tony and a group of friends walked the Relay for Life to fight cancer.
Okay.
On the way home, they were in a car crash.
Tony and his friends. Okay. We'll get to that in a moment. See, Thomas, thank you again. This is starting to sound more like give everybody a slap on the wrist no matter what, the thing that people have tried recently and doesn't work. Yeah, she talks about, I mean, she brought this up at the top, and, we talked about it, how in all high-level sentiment, I agree with her. There's a lot going on in this world that doesn't feel like reasonable consequence has been occurring. People have been getting away with, if not literal, though sometimes that too, with euphemistic murder. And it is a crisis. And we see it happen far too often. And something should be done, needs to be done. I agree. But then, like you say, her offered solution is just, let's have a conversation and come up with an action plan and go on our merry way and heal the harm. Repair the relationships. We're all in relationship with one another. So all we have to do is say we're sorry. And that should be enough. To ask any more would be inhuman and would just tend to strain the relationships we're trying to repair. Anyway, sorry. I don't know where that came from.
The other driver, I'll call him Mike.
Okay, so Tony's in a car with his friends. Mike's in the other car.
Ran a stop sign and then sped up when a cop tried to pull him over.
Okay.
It turns out Mike was intoxicated.
This is sounding worse and worse. Okay, what happened to Tony?
Mike hit Tony's vehicle, and Tony and one of his friends were killed.
Okay, well, we're getting there. And not in the sense that I'm like celebrating the story or something, but as far as an example of a serious crime, okay, this is on the level of what I was asking for. How does restorative justice speak to this? 21 years old, intoxicated, ran from the police, fleeing, ran a stop sign as well, crashed into another car, killed 2 people. All right. Jay Blizza, thank you. Those most against crime are those mostly likely to suffer from it. Something that to that effect was in a book I read. Yeah, I mean, when it stops being an abstract, it becomes obviously more serious in someone's life than someone who's never directly experienced something terrible, right? I mean, on a general humanity basis, we can all sort of abstractly empathize with the idea of being robbed or harm coming to one of our loved ones or something. And, hopefully it never actually happens to us, but we know that it does. But it's never quite the same until you've had to experience it yourself. And then it's a whole different ballgame, Or not quite in the same seriousness, but at least in my experience, I've never met more strident opponents of illegal immigration than legal immigrants. people who had to go through the process, jump through the hoops. I'm pressed to think of anyone I've met that I've known to be a legal immigrant who hasn't had a sentiment of utter distaste and disgust for people that cheat the system, right? Because they know what it is and they appreciate the struggles they went through to do it legitimately. So, yeah, anyway, that's, I suppose, kind of a common sense kind of thing, but true.
You can imagine how devastating this was for their families and the whole community.
Sure. I can thankfully only imagine. Sure.
Mike, who was only 24.
Oh, okay. Mike was 20, right. Tony was 21. Wait. Only 24. I smell apologia.
Was prosecuted and sent to prison for 20 years.
Okay. Sounds good. He got behind the wheel, intoxicated. He ran from the police. He wouldn't take accountability for his actions by fessing up to the police officer, and he hit and killed 2 people. Okay.
Meanwhile, Tony's family was left with unbelievable hurt.
Of course they were. And?
Tony had 2 sisters, Sarah and Maria, who were teenagers at the time of the crash.
Okay.
As years passed, they struggled to heal. Even though Mike had been punished, that didn't make them feel better about their loss.
And it never Okay. So let me guess. They decided, I'm just guessing here, they decided, or were given the opportunity to forgive, by visiting Mike in prison and talking to him about what happened and why he was drinking that night and his struggles and the effect it all had on him and so on and so forth. And by their own personal grace and initiative, came to terms more so by talking to Mike than they would have by not talking to Mike. That's my guess. I don't want, And I'll just, even if I'm wrong, let's just say that scenario is what takes place. I would not begrudge them their desire to do that. I can't begrudge anybody who is of their own volition willing to forgive someone else for their trespasses. Who am I to say? I brought this up a few times in the past, specifically talking about restorative justice. There was the Amber Geiger case. You guys remember the Amber Geiger case? This was the Dallas police officer who, while off work one night, went back to what she thought was her apartment and somehow confused her apartment for the apartment on the floor either directly above or below her own, because they all looked the same, except for the ways in which it didn't. And then she thought the person inside that apartment was an intruder in her apartment, except it was a guy in his own apartment. And she shot this person and killed him. And then she went on trial. And during the course of, I believe it was the sentencing or prior to the sentencing, the victims, it was either his brother or his cousin, I forget, on the stand, he asked the judge, he said something to the effect of, he would want me to forgive her. Judge, can I give her a hug? And it was one of the most sort of sincere, magnanimous things I had ever seen to that point. And it was true, and everybody in the courtroom was crying. And it, that took a lot of strength on that guy's part to do something like that. And I can respect that. I don't know that I would have done that, but it's to each their own. So if she's going to tell us that these 2 sisters made an effort to go talk to Mike and hash out their grief and everything with him, and it benefited them, okay. But that should not be a requirement of victims or the family of victims of crime, right? That was their choice, not their obligation. Thank you, Attribution. I've been harassed many times for not accepting a false apology. This pisses me off so much. Yeah. All right. You know, Attribution, we've offered you the opportunity to forgive. I mean, if you don't take it, that says more about you than it does about the person that you said does wrong. Right? Why can't you forgive Attribution? They said they were sorry. They said the magic words. That's all that's really needed. Open sesame! And when they say that, it means open your heart. And if you don't, you're obviously heartless. You wouldn't deny a repentant sinner, would you, Attribution?
As young adults, the sisters reached out to victim services at the North Dakota Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, which put them in touch with the Restorative Justice Program.
Yeah, okay, I know where this is going. Thank you, Jay Blizza. Forgiveness is saintly and not the standard, in my opinion. This is my general rule. General rule. It doesn't apply everything. Unlike our speaker, I will not talk in glittering generalizations. For me, forgiveness extended to the unremorseful is a gift unearned. In my book, before forgiveness can be considered, someone has to show a genuine demonstration of remorse. I have a real life example. It's one of the few. It's one of the few examples in my life where it was instantaneous. Instantaneous forgiveness. There was a girl. All stories start with there was a girl. There was a girl that I went to school with in junior high and then high school, who was a mean girl, let's say. And if you can believe it, I know it's difficult to imagine. But as I was growing up, I was a bespectacled nerd. Kind of quiet, kind of stoic, kept to myself. Sometimes, could be coerced into doing things because I wanted to fit in, or coerced into doing things because I was a shy boy. Anyway, this girl, in various ways and forms over the course of years and such, did not treat me well. Made fun of me, picked on me. But before it got really bad, she coerced me with, the burgeoning feminine wiles of whatever, early teenagers can have, into helping her, doing her homework for her, that kind of thing. Okay. And so by the time we got out of high school, she wasn't like the primary villain of my high school years or something, but she was a mini boss, let's say. After high school, never had any contact with her again. So from the late 90s all the way through to the early 2000s, never was heard a encouraging word. No contact. And then, all of a sudden, I got my first real job out of college. This was about 2 years outside of college. And lo and behold, there she was. She had been working at the company for, I think, a year or two at that point. And she was in a different department, sort of, or different group, but higher up on the totem pole than I was. And I immediately recognized her. But after that first day or so of orientation, I had no notion that she even saw me or recognized me at all. So I just thought, wow, that's a small world kind of thing. And I was like, okay. And my assumption was, given her department versus mine, we'd probably never see each other. So I was like, okay, no. It happens. My second day there, I'm sitting at my desk, and she comes walking down the aisle in my pod, my cubicle pod. And I'm like, and she walks up and says, "Hey, do you remember me from school? You're Scribe, right?" And I'm, Jane. Like, I said, "Oh no, I remember you." And without anything else from me, She says, was I really mean to you back then? Because I was a real bitch in those days. And if I ever did anything mean or hurt you or anything, I just wanted to apologize. And you would have thought like light from on high came down to this moment. Because to that point in my life, as far as I can tell, I had never experienced a unsolicited, wholly self-generated, and sincere extension of regret and remorse for things that she wasn't even sure she could remember, but she just recognized me and knew something about the dynamic that existed between us when we were kids. And I was like, instantaneous. And admittedly, I hadn't thought about her in any meaningful way for years. But somebody comes up, somebody brings up a name or whatever, and your first instinct is, gone, absolutely gone. And here's the thing, she showed me that is possible. To that point, I'd never experienced anything like it. I didn't know if people did that kind of thing. And the fact that she proved to me that it's possible set my standards pretty high. I gotta tell you, it's, for anything else that came down the pike in the future, especially things that had happened in the recent past to that point, that set the standard pretty high to me for what a sincere offering of remorse looks like. So it does happen. It can happen. And true remorse and true forgiveness can take place. I'm not decrying or denying that at all. But for me, it has to be unsolicited and it has to be sincere. Now, sincerity, many splendored thing. But in that instance and in those circumstances, I had no doubt. No doubt in my mind. Anyway, sorry I went off on a tangent there, but just want to set my thoughts on this before we proceed.
Harm of this gravity, like loss of life, can never be fully repaired.
Okay, so you say restorative justice has its limit. So restorative justice cannot fix all that ails us when it comes to accountability. I think I'm ready to circle contradicts own point or fails to make argument.
But you can foster a healing process.
Feels like you're moving the goalposts here.
In this case, the sisters spoke with my colleague, Joel Fries, and decided they wanted to meet with Mike.
What'd I tell you?
Mike agreed.
I'm sure he did. He probably gets very few visitors.
He wanted to apologize and to show Tony's family the steps he was taking to change.
And I will extend the benefit of the doubt to the story. I'm sure he did. Sure. Why not?
Through a facilitated process, the sisters and Mike met and heard each other's stories. Sarah and Maria told Mike about Tony, about the kind of brother he was, what he loved, and about the community vigil after the crash.
This is not a restorative justice process. Not as has been classically rendered to me before when it comes to a circle of stakeholders, a moderator, the victim, and the offender. Okay, this is after the criminal justice system has had its way with the individual, and now, after the fact, he's being held accountable through prison. And it sounds like, if I'm believing your story, he's holding himself accountable by trying to change his ways between the time that he's in and before he gets out. It's got nothing to do with restorative justice. And here's the thing. If Mike had done nothing, if he hadn't shown any remorse, hadn't taken any steps, he'd still be in jail for 20 years, and he'd still be under his own supervision, let's say, after he gets out for the most part. And he could seriously reoffend. And then what? If it helped the sisters in their own way, great. I have more sympathy for them than I do the drunken guy.
Mike apologized and expressed his sorrow. He talked about his own kids and what he wanted for them.
Oh, he had kids. I don't like this guy even more. Driving around drunk. I'm hoping none of the kids were in the car at the time.
The sisters were able to hold Mike accountable.
No, the criminal justice system held Mike accountable. If they had never decided to go talk to him,
After years of prolonged grief.
I thought he was already holding himself accountable. He was already taking steps.
By the end of the process, Maria told Mike she was ready to offer forgiveness.
Good for her. And I mean that sincerely.
Not so much for his benefit, but for her own.
Whatever you want to do, I have a hard time criticizing people and their own motivations. I've explained my own set of criteria.
Afterwards, she said, "It's definitely a weight off my heart."
Again, to each their own.
So I ask you, what weight are we all carrying?
Okay, you have failed. You have failed in your argument.
Not only from the harms that happen to us and our own mistakes, but from the lack of accountability in our culture.
You haven't addressed. Restorative justice was not used on Mike. The victims chose to talk to him of their own volition. They did not need to. They were not obligated to. And they were also not obligated to forgive the guy, even if he was professing remorse. Your example, okay. So, I'm going to circle weightless example non sequitur, because that is not what you offered.
How are we all hurt when punishment and public shame stand in place of real justice?
Punishment is oftentimes the only amount of justice you're going to get. I don't know what, I mean, you want more. I get, we all want more. We want the bad guy to feel bad. We want the bad guy to show remorse. We want the bad guy to understand the gravity of their actions, even if what they've done is irreversible. But you're not going to get that through restorative justice. You cannot guarantee that through restorative justice. And that's effectively what you've said here, which is nonsense.
We need true accountability to
What does that mean?
rebuild public trust,
How?
to repair our own hearts,
Then you need to have taken whatever you're pitching and apply it to current events.
to live in safe communities where people feel heard and belong.
Belonging. Well, you might as well go off be a DEI advocate.
This is not the soft route. It is the hardest work imaginable.
Look, I'm sure that the work that you do dealing with youthful offenders is not easy. I get it. And I get having to deal with people's feelings and families and trying to be a conflict resolver and so on is an uphill battle on a regular basis, especially these days. But what you are proposing is no kind of answer. It is no panacea, and you pointedly avoided applying it as an intervention for serious crimes.
Is accountability and reforming our culture even possible?
I think so. I mean, you're never going to please all of the people, but I think it's possible if you actually did adjudicate the law fairly to those both on high and below. But unless or until we see that happen more, nah.
My answer is yes,
Sure.
unequivocally,
Yeah.
through restorative justice.
No.
Thank you.
Okay. So I withheld talking about my own sort of assessment of the accountability crisis. I mentioned 2008, and I'll tell you in brief, because even though this doesn't affect everybody, I think when you start to see a pattern of behavior at the very top of our society where you're not held to account for what you do, it gives leave to everybody else. It sends a message that you can be pretty bad and not much will happen. And we've seen that over and over again recently. So two particular instances. One, and I won't go into details because I don't need to, the housing crisis, the Wall Street crash and all of the recession and all that stuff. The big executives in the banks not really having to pay any particular price, and in fact being paid off for having crashed the economy. I mean, was anyone in any of those banks of any note held to account criminally for crashing the economy? No. Obama gave them a pass. And the other Obama example was, I will confess, I don't know the only shame about it. I think I was in, I was in good faith at the time. I voted for Obama the first time. Why? Because I was decidedly upset with the Bush administration. I was decidedly upset that in the accountability phase of things, we had a government that was effectively run by war profiteers and criminals who had sent people off to be tortured in the name of America. Extraordinary rendition. Right? Alberto Gonzalez making excuses for spying on Americans and everything else. Yeah, not a fan. And I thought, in my idealistic and high-minded self at the time, I thought that Obama, Mr. Change, Mr. Hope, would actually come in and hold someone to account for that. Because if you let people at that level go without any consequence, the likelihood that people at that level will repeat the same mistakes increases exponentially. And then he made he had a press conference, and I think it was, I want to say it was while he was still president-elect. So it was after the election, but before he was inaugurated. It was at least one of his earliest press conferences. And I remember watching this, and a reporter actually asked him if he would initiate investigations or congressional hearings or something on the conduct of the, or if he, set the Justice Department on the actions of the previous administration when it came to prosecuting the war. And this was exactly the kind of thing I was hoping to hear, having voted for him. And his answer, and I can't repeat it verbatim, but it had the sentiments of, and I am paraphrasing here, well, we need to look forward and not dwell on the past. And I was like, uh-oh. I knew then I had, again, in good faith, backed the wrong horse, as it were. Not that there was really a better option at that point. And we've seen similar things either on high or on low for years now, and especially recently when it comes to the lax law enforcement in major cities, raising the level of what constitutes a real crime before the cops will get involved, especially when it comes to retail theft. We've had the pardons. And I'm not leaving Trump out of this. He has pardoned some out-and-out con men. The Binance guy, who he just pardoned like a week or two ago now, and when he was asked about it directly, he said, I don't even know who the guy is. How is that any different than Biden or Biden pen pardoning people that he had no idea about or any knowledge of? Convicted fraudsters, criminals, without any real explanation as to why does this person deserve clemency or a full pardon or whatever else. Trevor Milton, George Santos, Anthony Fauci, Hunter Biden. I mean, so yeah, is there an accountability crisis? Yes. Is there a solution to it? Sure, if you could actually hold people accountable, or if anybody had the balls to attempt it in any meaningful way, and not just for the sake of political expediency and lawfare, but actually hold people to account in a just way for real crimes. But the more that we don't, the more messages we send, both the people on high and down below, that crime isn't criminal anymore. Crime is legal. I think that's a t-shirt that CoffeeZilla has. But anyway, that's my tangent. This talk was terrible. Let's move on to the bingo card, and then we can get into some more discussions on the subject matter at hand. All right, so this is the card as I have it right now. I'm going to go over it one more time by myself. If you have arguments for squares to be circled, hold on to them. There we go. And I will get to you momentarily. Collectivize his own demographic. When she said I'm an what was it again? Whatever it was. I'm someone who has a sense of moral reputation, whatever. I think that counts. I think that counts because she was putting herself into a generalized demographic, let's say. So let's do that one. Systemic or institutional, certainly. System of justice, the criminal justice system, and so on. Yes. Childhood or family anecdote. She never talked about herself. She talked about other people's stories, but never herself. DEI philosophy. Not that I heard. There might be an argument, but I don't know. Plays victim. Did she play the victim? See, this is a tough one because I'm sure someone would say, oh, well, on behalf of society, she was playing a victim. Well, maybe, but she wasn't playing a victim so much, and her complaint was not without general merit. So, not sure on that one. Microaggressions or unconscious bias? Not that I could tell. Privilege? Yes, because she talked about how public officials have no accountability. So, that is a kind of privilege. Contradicts own point or fails to make argument? Boy, howdy. Both. Patriarchy. She never talked about gender dynamics that I can recall. Deceptive statistics. I don't think she brought up any. Economic disparity. Well, she never mentioned the economic situation of those boys that stoned the car. I mean, she did mention that, if these kids had gone to regular court, they would have been forced to do this, that. But she didn't, make an example of a difference in economy. So, feminism, not sure that she did. Marginalized or marginalization? Not sure. White supremacy, she never brought up race. Word salad, that's a tough one. Well, maybe not so tough. Yes, because she just kept repeating herself over and over again and not giving any specifics and talking in these high-minded generalities. And it didn't quite reach the level of a WTF moment, but it was definitely persistent, let's say. Answer.
Bingo. What? Of course!
Okay, self-vilification or wretchedness. Did she ever talk about herself being part of the problem? Because she's running an organization that promotes this, so she thinks she's part of the solution. The most I could say is that she described herself as starting off as a fatalist and then becoming a pragmatic optimist. So was that self-vilification or wretchedness? You tell me. Attempt to coin new buzzword or buzz phrase. I'm trying to think of her list, and I didn't see anything in the list that she repeated too many times or that I hadn't heard before. I'm not sure. I don't think so. Anecdote that probably never happened. See, we already did leaves out vital context for how the boys stoning the car redressed their damage. So that's already been taken care of. But the stories themselves, she only gave 2 real anecdotes, and that was the kids in the car and the car wreck DUI. And there's nothing about those stories that sounds that's too good to be true or anything. And I've heard plenty of stories of people visiting those that have taken their loved ones' lives or done other horrible things in prison before. So none of that sounded fake to me. How she decided to interpret them as pertains to restorative justice, that might fall more into weightless example, non sequitur territory. But the anecdotes themselves, I don't think they were false. if that makes sense. But I'm open to arguments otherwise. Anyway, that's the card as I have it. If you have arguments for squares to be circled, put them in the chat now. And if I missed your argument, please just repost it. If you say scroll up, I'm not going to. But I always scroll up a little bit at the top. Anal in. I was mostly scared of Mitt Romney and hated what the Bush administration became. I thought Bush first term was fine. Comparatively, I don't know. His first term set us on the path. So I don't know. Stoker, I didn't vote Obama at all, but it's not a place to tell anyone to ever vote for. Yeah, it was just the circumstances of the time. I've been through 8 years of, in my opinion, absolute insanity, warmongering, war profiteering, corruption, overreach of executive authority, Patriot Act, color coding at airports, on and on and on and on, freedom fries, accusations of treason simply for asking questions, on and on and on. I wanted something that I thought would be at least diametrically opposed to that. And look what we got. Anyway. Abdicastiabli, the comptroller Biden commuted her sentence was Rita Crunwell. That's what Rita, I thought it was Lisa or something. Rita Crunwell. That's right. From Dixon, Illinois. Okay, I thought it was Dixon, Texas or something. Okay, Dixon, Illinois. Well, I got half the story right. Jay Blue, just wait until after Scribe says he won't scroll to pitch my ideas, which I don't have for this one's head. Okay. Playing victim to the justice system as it is now currently. Okay, how is she playing a victim to the criminal justice system? Expand on that. I'm not saying you're wrong. I just need more. I need more context, more information. Fries consent? Freedom fries. Now, can't call them French anymore because the French weren't with us in our march off to war. So in order to protest the French, we had to call them freedom fries. Yeah, it's that childish kind of stuff like that just makes me, my eyes go rolling in the back of my head. And I'm like, oh God. Is not something that I find all that endearing in politics, playing playground type word games. Like the Democrats calling it the big disgusting bill. Trump says the big beautiful bill, and now it's the big disgusting bill or whatever they call it. Like, oh God, grow up. If you wanted to be professional, just name it by its actual name. Whatever the official name of the bill was, or its title, or its number, or something. But anyway, neener, that kind of mentality, neener mentality. Adabisi Scarlett, can we say she was playing the victim with the rest of society by claiming the system isn't punishing the right way? Okay, and the only reason, and this is where, like I say, it's the reason I hesitate is because playing victim denotes an amount of deception and insincerity. And the thing is, on the high-level complaint, I agree with her, and I don't think it is a falsehood to say that what we see going on in society she brought up Biden pardoning Rita Crunwell. Okay, you can't get much more sort of high-profile, let's say nonpartisan, as complaining about that. So I empathize with her complaint, and I don't think that she's incorrect in having that sense of, let's say, discomfort or betrayal by society. Her method for solving it, obviously, I don't agree with. But is she playing the victim by being dissatisfied with the way that justice is being meted out? Even if I don't find her resolution to it satisfying, is she still playing that's sort of like the philosophical question. So consider that. That's my only opposition. So consider that. And if you have an answer for that, great. But that's why I hesitate. Is she playing the victim? Is she deceiving in her frustration over current events? Is she being deceptive in some way? That's the line. Advocate, scribal justice system is working contrary to her restorative justice goals as they stand in the way of her ideals. Osan, adventure that never, or anecdote that never happened. In the real story, the guy ran a red light, not a stop sign. It's mechanically the same thing. I can't fault somebody for that. That's not. If it was a completely false story, then maybe. I mean, and again, you'd have to look that up to be able to tell. It's whether or not we believe the legitimacy of the anecdote. And, you know, and a detail like that is effectively irrelevant to the events. Adabisi, consider what you said. However, I want to say she is using our joint complaint to justify her own ends. But does that still equate to playing the victim? Oh, but you're saying that she's using our, let's say, collective general agreement as a lever to push us towards, okay. Yeah, but see, again, it's that element of deception. I mean, I can't fault her for having her beliefs or her opinions on how justice should work. I mean, I don't agree with them. I don't have any reason that she's being insincere about her intentions. This is a tough one. I mean, she's obviously, she is trying to persuade. She is trying to manipulate people towards her point of view. But does that mean that she's being deceptive or disingenuous in the complaint that's starting that conversation? I don't know. Advocatus, she is a victim in that the justice system is huge and she is small. Thus she is the small fish trying to fight the shark, thus a victim. But that's just reality. Oh, see. I am not trying to be intentionally obstinate here. I'm not. It's just that it's easier when someone starts whining about something that's their own fault or something that they could have easily avoided or something. That plays victim a lot easier. In something like this, my disagreeing with her solution does not a false victim make of her. Her having a complaint that in general I agree with, even if she's trying to guide me towards her conclusion, does not a false victim make of her. So, I don't know. And before we move on, I just want to say how much I appreciate the fact that we're having, as we've had before, this has happened before, we've had this much discussion over a square that is not vital to a bingo. Like there's no sort of abstract win for me circling this or getting it circled. So I really appreciate that, regardless of how we go. Hey man, I have 103 fever. Oh, no, I completely understand, and you are not off base in what you're saying. I get it. It's the deception part. It's the deception over her complaint. If she was making a mountain out of a molehill prior to offering her solution, then maybe it would feel like she was playing the victim. But she brought up real stories of people, at least in the beginning, who got away with stuff undeservedly for the most part, like Rita Crunwell. Her complaint has merit. And as we all did at the beginning, remember? In the first like 5 minutes or something, we were all like, yes, we agree. We're all kind of on the same general page. Then she moved into the area where we disagree, but our disagreement does not become a deceptive act. Does that make sense? And Advocatus, go to bed. Drink some water. Take vitamin C, whatever you got to do. Make sure you're hydrated. Bundle up. Try to sweat it out. Don't stick around here if you don't have to. Jay Blizza, hot-blooded, check it and see. I got a fever of 103. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, go rest. Go rest. I love the discussion over squares. I do too. Like I say, I think this, as I've always said, I think the bingo card is truly the heart of this series, because at the end of the day, you can listen to somebody say something weird or ridiculous or whatever, but then this part, really thinking about what was said in serious terms, even for no stakes. That's the best part. I am in bed as we speak. Okay, let's. If we end all of the personal details there, that's fine. We go any further than that, this becomes a 99 cent a minute type of conversation. So, that's fine. Thank you, Advocatus. Okay. In all honesty, as compared to the square itself, I have not been convinced that she played the victim. She had a bad argument. She had a bad solution to the problem she cited. But even people in the chat, we were all on board with her overall despair, complaint, argument prior to her offered solution. And in that sense, it's hard for me to say that she was being deceptive, because she was talking about kind of a universal and understood discomfort with the way our society, our criminal justice system, our political system lets people off the hook with little to no real consequence or punishment. So I would hope that if she's going to offer up a cure-all, that she actually tells us how this cures. The best that she could do is, after the criminal justice system as currently rendered had its way with a drunk driver, then the victim's family of their own accord decided to engage in restorative justice. Whereas before she implied, we're going to give you an opportunity to forgive, which is condescending. But anyway, that's where we're at, guys. One bingo, not that bad. Interesting talk in the sense that, well, I always love listening to restorative justice arguments because you never know what they're going to say next. Except never address the most serious of crimes in a meaningful way. I will give her credit, partial as it is, that she did bring up a decidedly serious crime in the course of her talk. Most, if not all, of the other presenters that I've listened to have never bothered bringing up an actual serious crime. And she did, although it didn't actually answer the promises that she made earlier in the talk. But hey, what can you hope for? It's TEDXcellence. Now, on to the programming note that if you aren't following me on X and you aren't a member of the Discord server, which if you'd like to solve that problem, I'll have a solution for you momentarily. Next Friday, Friday the 14th, the cousin of Camp Crystal Lake, at 12:30 p.m. Pacific time, 3:30 p.m. Eastern time, will be, after a long hiatus of real-life distractions and catastrophes and a whole bunch of other things, the next episode. In fact, I'm going to call it the first episode of the second season of Living on Borrowed Crime. Living on Borrowed Crime, for those of you that don't know, is an interview/panel discussion series I've conducted over the previous year or so with true crime content creators, mainly from YouTube, talking about their craft, the genre, their experiences in it so far, and the trials and tribulations of trying to make a buck on YouTube making true crime content. And so my guest, a guest I've been seeking out for at least a year, next week will be Beside the Dying Fire. That is the name of the channel. So Beside the Dying Fire. Beside the Dying Fire about 2 days ago, released thus far his longest feature-length true crime documentary. An hour and a half. I mean, I'm like, this is a movie, okay? And from my own middling experience in creating true crime videos, I can only imagine the amount of time and effort and research that went into this thing, because it is not just a plop in an interrogation video and just post it. This is an in-depth analysis of the chain of events of a particular incident and the legal, moral, psychological questions that come up about it. So anyway, if you haven't already, go take a look at Beside the Dying Fire. And if you like what he does, be sure to subscribe. But yes, next Friday, November 14th, interview with Beside the Dying Fire, Living on Borrowed Crime. Hopefully just the first in another new series of streams and interviews and perhaps panel discussions with true crime content creators. So take a look at that when you have the opportunity. And join us next Friday, if you can. There's a link in the Discord server. And if you'd like to join the Discord server, well, I have a link for you in the chat right now. All you have to do is click on that link. You'll find yourself on the landing channel called Say Hello. And in addition to saying hello, you just have to say the secret word. If I don't lose my voice here. The secret word will tell me that you actually watch the stream, are not a bot, and have thus earned the right, the privilege, the entitlement to join the Discord server. And today's secret word is plays victim. Just say, hello, plays victim, and I'll know that you watched this show in particular. Outside of that, there will be a Saturday stream, a Dog, Cat, Fox, and Friend. Yes, Dog, Cat, Fox. And friend. He's the Dog, Cat, Fox. I'm the friend. That'll be taking place Saturday at 3 p.m. Pacific time, 6 p.m. Eastern. And I'll talk about some news stories of the week that you might not have heard of. Or if you have, you'll have my take on them. So looking forward to that. Elsewise, I think that's all the news that's fit to print. I want to thank the moderators for keeping an eye on things, even though everyone here is so well behaved. You have very, very little to do. Everybody who donated, holy cow. As always, I can't tell you how much I appreciate your guys' generosity. And especially as well, if you have donated to the top of the chat box. Right. The link to the Leukemia Lymphoma Society at the top of the chat box. Please, if you haven't already, take a look at that and donate if you can, or share if you're able. Otherwise, everybody, hope you all enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Hope you have a good Friday ahead of you and weekend as well. I hope you're all safe and well. If you're not well, please get well soon, especially you advocates. And I will see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.